My name is Tina. I'm 32 years old and married to Alexander, who is 35 and works in an office. I work from home as a freelance fashion designer. At first, my job was unstable, but then I got a big project that paid really well. Because of this, Alexander and I moved into a fancy high-rise apartment. Since I was the one who wanted to live there, I agreed to pay the rent myself. Alexander loved the new place, and I thought we would be happy. I never expected what happened next. One day, Alexander brought his mother, Betty, to our home. She was 65 years old. Her husband had passed away 3 years ago, and she had been living alone. "Hi, Tina," she said. "Hi, Betty, it's been a while. What's going on?" I asked. Alexander looked nervous. "She wants to live with us." "Why?" He explained that her house was old and falling apart. She didn't have much money, so she wanted to stay with us for a while. "Oh, I see." I understood, but I wasn't happy about it. I liked our home as it was, just the two of us. Betty and I weren't close, and having her live with us felt uncomfortable. "Please," Alexander begged. "Her house is in bad shape. I'll ask her to find a new place soon." Okay, I agreed, thinking it would only be temporary. A month later, Betty moved in. "Thank you for letting me stay in such a nice place," she said. "No problem, make yourself at home," I replied with a forced smile. Then, right after settling in, she asked, "Can I borrow some money?" "Huh? Money?" I was shocked by how direct she was. "I've been going to the doctor a lot, and it's expensive. I just need a little, maybe $300. I figured medical bills made sense for someone her age, so I gave her the money. Later, Alexander came to me with another request. "You know, we should get a new car," he said. I almost fell off my chair. "What? We just bought one 2 years ago. But it's too small, we need a bigger one." I didn't understand. The car was fine for the two of us, even with Betty. "My mom doesn't like it," he admitted. "What? Why does she care?" "She wants something more luxurious, like a Mercedes." "Huh?" I was completely confused. "A fancy car? We couldn't afford that." Did Betty even know how to drive? "I'm not buying an expensive car," I said firmly. At the time, I didn't realize why she cared so much about the car. Betty asked me for money again. "My medical bills are getting more expensive, and I'm behind on payments. Can you help me?" "Is your health getting worse?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "Not really. I just feel a little depressed and have trouble sleeping. My therapist is expensive. I'm really sorry." "I see. How much do you need?" "About 1,000, for now." $1,000? I felt uneasy. I didn't know much about therapy, but that seemed like too much. "I'm sorry, my insurance only covers part of it. I have to pay the rest," she explained. I see, I'll get it by tomorrow." Even though the amount shocked me, I tried to be understanding. Maybe therapy and tests really did cost a lot. But after that, she kept asking for money, for medical bills, travel costs to visit sick friends, and other reasons. When I realized she had borrowed over $5,000, I started feeling frustrated, even though my job was going well. Then, I noticed something strange. One day, I peeked into Betty's room. "What?" I was stunned. Designer bags and wallets were neatly arranged on her shelf. I thought she didn't have money. How did she afford such expensive things? She had borrowed so much from me, yet she owned all this luxury. I started to doubt her medical bills. A month later, Betty asked for money again. "Tina, about the money," she said casually, as if it was no big deal. "Can you wait a moment?" I had planned to confront her, so I called Alexander. He seemed clueless. "I want to ask you something, Betty. What are you really using the money for?" Alexander looked confused. "Wait, what's going on, Tina?" "You know, my therapy, prescriptions, and," she mumbled. "Not just that, right? You've been buying designer clothes and bags. Are you even seeing a therapist?" "Of course." "Then show me the receipts. You must have them, right?" Well, when I pressed her for proof, she had nothing to say. I realized Betty wasn't using the money for her health, she was spending it on other things. "Wait, what's going on?" Alexander was still confused. "Betty has wasted all the money she borrowed from me, over $5,000, I said. "Even so, you don't have to be so harsh, can't you be nicer?" Alexander defended her. He was a total mama's boy. "I don't have receipts. I was shopping and eating out with friends," Betty finally admitted. No wonder she always seemed relaxed. She didn't look depressed at all. "If you lied, then pay me back right now," I demanded. Betty gave me a desperate look. "Wait, I can't pay that much all at once. I had enough." I pointed at her room. You have a ton of designer stuff in there, sell them all, if not, then move out. Of course, Alexander jumped to her defense. Hey, you're being unfair, she deserves a little luxury too. A little luxury? Wasting over $5,000 isn't a little luxury, it's a scam. You're being rude. Just because you pay the rent doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. If you're not happy, then you leave. What, are you serious? I was furious. Steam was practically coming out of my ears. Did I say anything wrong? You brought Betty here. You sit around doing nothing. Who do you think is paying for this fancy apartment? Alexander snapped. You're so full of yourself. Get out now. Fine, don't regret this. I packed only what I needed and left. I found a new place quickly. Since I worked from home, I could live anywhere. I didn't care about fancy apartments, just a comfortable place to live. What next? I had no plans to return. I was the one paying rent, and I doubted Alexander could afford to stay there. His salary wasn't enough. I spoke to the real estate agent who helped me before. I'm struggling to pay rent for personal reasons. I told him. That wasn't true, I could afford it, but I had my reasons for saying that. I'm sorry to hear that. What would you like to do? I asked him for a favor. A few days later, Alexander called me while I was working. What? I answered. What do you mean? What have you done? I was told to move out because the lease was cancelled, he shouted. Yeah, I asked to break the lease. I don't live there anymore, so why would I keep paying rent? But, my mom and I still live here. Not my problem, I said, sighing. If you're in trouble, ask your mom for help. Maybe she can sell some of her things for money. Shut up, you were the one who wanted a high-rise apartment. If you want to stay, take over the lease. Oh, wait, you can't afford it, can you? Alexander went silent. You should at least be able to afford a cheap apartment. Go find one and move in with your mom. Are you crazy? My mom already spent the money from selling her house, and I have no savings. How am I supposed to find a new place? Not my problem, I repeated. He had been relying on my income the whole time, and yet he had nothing saved up. I realized how reckless both Alexander and his mother had been. You brought this on yourselves. Figure it out from now on, I said. Are you saying we should be homeless? You're still my wife. I told you, find somewhere else to live. I'm done with you. Goodbye. I hung up. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Betty. Yes? Tina. I'm really sorry. I'll pay you back, so please don't kick us out, she cried. I was surprised but also felt a little sad. I didn't want to lecture an older woman, but I had to. You should live within your means. If you don't have enough retirement money, you need to adjust your lifestyle. If you want more, you have to work for it. As a freelancer, I knew the reality. If I wanted a certain standard of living, I had to work hard and earn it, not rely on someone else. It was all my fault. I'm so sorry. Please don't let us be homeless. I'm sorry, but the apartment has already been rented to someone else. You really have to move. There's nothing I can do. I turned her down and hung up. Later, the realtor told me Alexander and Betty had begged him in tears to keep the lease, but a new tenant was moving in soon, so they had no choice but to leave. Even if they had stayed, Alexander's entire salary would have gone to rent, leaving them with nothing for food or bills. Honestly, it was ridiculous that he had tried to kick me out when I was the one paying for everything. His temper ruined everything, and now there was no going back. What a fool. I later heard that Alexander and Betty couldn't find a new apartment. Since he had no savings, they moved from one cheap motel to another. He couldn't afford the deposit or broker's fee, and no one wanted to be his guarantor. Betty had barely worked, so her social security was too little to help. They were even struggling to buy food. They had done this to themselves. As for me, I landed another big project and became even more financially secure. Looking back, I learned a huge lesson. Being completely dependent on someone, whether for money or responsibilities, is dangerous. If things fall apart, you'll suffer. Eventually, Alexander and I got divorced. After everything that happened, we no longer had feelings for each other. Now that we're strangers, I feel relieved. If I ever marry again, I'll take my time and choose wisely. This divorce taught me some valuable life lessons.